If I told you what happened, you'd never leave this room again. Hi, I'm Ben. Welcome to my book corner. Today we're taking a look at The Shuddering by Ania Ahlborn. This first came out back in 2013 and comes in at 283 pages long and is our final review for the Festival of Fear for October 2023. As always, we shall take a look at the story, the characters, the setting and the world building, as well as the presentation before I give my final thoughts at the end. Let's just jump straight into this one. This is a cabin in the woods style story in many regards, but there are a few key differences here. First of all, the cabin is pretty much a mansion. It's like a massive hunting lodge, and there's a group of 5 people who are going to be spending a few days there during the Colorado winter, and basically they're going on a ski trip, and the idea is this is kind of a reunion for 3 best friends the last time before one of them moves away to Europe because of work. The 3 best friends are Ryan and Jane Adler, who are twins, and it is their father who at least appears to own the house, and Sawyer, who was Jane's teenage sweetheart sort of deal going on there. Jane has brought her friend Lauren kind of to try and get Ryan interested so he doesn't go away because she doesn't want to lose her twin, and Sawyer's brought his new flame, April, who they're expecting a baby. That's not clear at the start, and you have some interpersonal issues going on with that. And the idea is one final get together before they all split up. Unfortunately, there's something roaming the woods, and this is established very early on in the prologue. There's something out there hunting people, unbeknownst to the group. The group go about their normal day, go skiing, so on and so forth. A few accidents here and there, but they begin to sense that something's slightly off. And then when a massive snowstorm blows in and completely cuts off the lodge in general and eventually takes out the power as well, they realise that there's something predatory out there, not just one something, but a pack. At first they think it's just wolves. That very clearly becomes a case of, no, this is not wolves. And you end up with very much an apex predator situation, and this small group trying to survive with, again, very little resources, nothing really to defend themselves. Terrible conditions because obviously you've got like 6 foot of snow at this point. And overall it's a very good, tense framework for this story, and it really does help some of the ways that this story jumps to dealing with what the threat is outside of the main characters, but I will touch on that a little bit more in presentation later on. So as mentioned before, there are 5 main characters here, plus their husky, whose name I think is Una, if I remember correctly. Ryan and Jane, first of all, they're the Adler twins, and their parents are divorced, and their father, unbeknown to Jane at the start of the story, is actually selling or has sold the hunting lodge. Now Ryan still has a key, and he's sort of masterminded this idea to get them together, partially so Jane and Sawyer can reconnect a little bit, but also these were, he's so close to his twin, and he was so close to Sawyer as well, that this is sort of the last hurrah before he moves away. And he's very much a non-committal kind of guy. He's very successful in the businesses that he's made, but he's more of an adrenaline junkie sort of person. Very much a jock type character in many regards. He's not actually dislikable, but he's not particularly likable either. Jane, on the other hand, is someone who's eschewed the family wealth, works with children, does lots of stuff around that kind, and very much rejects the sort of lifestyle of the family in general, and is very proud and won't take help. But she is so close to her twin that she doesn't want him to move away. I think it's to Zurich. So she fetches along her friend Lauren, who she thinks he will be interested in, and in fact he is. Basically because he's got commitment issues, obviously stemming from what's happened with their parents and what's caused their split up. And the final piece of the puzzle, you've got Sawyer, who's very much almost like a grunge rocker sort of vibe off him, and his vampire-like girlfriend April, who has tagged along but doesn't really want to be there, thinks that Sawyer's too good for this group, and obviously with Sawyer and Jane being childhood sweethearts as well, you do get the tension that's in there. You do get some really interesting interplay between these groups and a sense of guilt, especially as things start to go off the rails from Ryan, as he realises that he kind of knew about this all along but didn't, because obviously it sounded so far-fetched, but he's heard rumours and folk stories, so on and so forth. There are a couple of side characters in here, but they are very much there to establish the threat of the story, so they've only got maybe a chapter each, just so they can show the monstrous creatures that you are facing, and they themselves very much act as one entity, like a very intelligent, smart, goading pack of wolves. These are not stupid predators by any stretch of the imagination as well, and they have a character of deep foreboding just as a group, and almost insurmountable cunning and threat established to them. So all that being said though, the only character in this that I would say is likeable is Lauren. Overall, she seems like a genuinely good person. She has really good banter with a number of the other characters in here as well, which is worth mentioning. But overall the characters are pretty solidly done. I'm going to talk a bit more about setting for this one, rather than actual world building itself, because there is a real focus on the weather conditions in Colorado during the time that this story is set. This is very much a very cold, very inhospitable time of the year, with deep snowfalls, and this makes it a skier's paradise. But there's also mention of local legends. So very early on in the book it's mentioned that someone's grandfather wouldn't stay in the area when the snow fell, because that's when they hunted, and it's very much portrayed as a folk tale about werewolves, which is not entirely true. You also get mention of the natural wildlife. You have wolves, you have elk, I think it is as well, in the area that roam free. So when they hear the howling in the distance, or they see there's some movements, whilst the howling will cause them to become very tense, as you would expect with people, when they see the elk disappear and come flying out the tree at high speed, they assume it's just wolves, until they begin to realise it isn't, which is some really good foreshadowing and foreboding there. And there's a couple of other bits that go on in terms of setting as well. You have mentioned to previous incidents which have been put down to just plain animal attacks or people just going missing on the slopes. You know, people will unfortunately go off the main track sometimes if they feel confident enough in their abilities, and sometimes those bodies are never found because, you know, massive snow drifts, you won't always find them. And they begin to piece this together throughout the course of the story. You also have some good environmental storytelling around the actual lodge itself, and some of the various things that add a sort of sense of creep to the story in general. It's a very, very well maintained lodge, but not lived in, and you have the hunter's trophies on the wall and stuff, which again is kind of foreshadowing for what's going to happen to the main people in this, and pretty much anyone in this. I really appreciate, but the real focus of this is the weather and how bitterly cold it is. You have whiteout snow conditions, cars can't make it up the road, you've got no cell phone coverage, it ends up bad enough that you end up with power outages. And this is not an unusual thing for the area as well. This is mentioned that years previously something similar had happened and they'd been holed up in the hotel for a week, not being able to go anywhere. And the fact that they've planned for a certain amount of supplies, but they still need to get back, and as the interpersonal issues begin to sort of escalate to a breaking point, then all these things begin to coalesce in a real sense of tension in the story, which is then exacerbated by how inhospitable the conditions are outside, and that really does help elevate this in many, many regards. Two things to talk about with presentation. The first one is the cover of the book, and I didn't pick up on this at first, but as you look at the cover, it is basically the idea of somebody lay on the back looking up at the tree line above them after they've obviously been pretty much murdered, and you've got the sort of blood coming in from the corner of their eyesight, and that is very, very clever, and you get imagery of that all the way through the book. The red on snow is prevalent throughout this title. The other thing I want to talk about is in terms of pacing. This is pretty quickly paced. It has some natural peaks and troughs in the pacing, but always the level of tension is always one level higher than it was before. So you'll have the normal start, you'll have right at the beginning, you've got an establishment of what the threat is, and it comes down to the normal everyday, and it slowly but surely builds up before there's another peak. And then when it settles back down, because you know what the threat is, the actual level of tension is just a little bit higher, and that natural progression of the peaks and troughs is really, really well done. The other thing as well is the way that the threat is established, as from the point of view of the main cast of characters, they don't really see anything until quite a distance into the book. The threat is established through side characters and their demise, and each death in the book further builds on how clever and smart these creatures are the main threat of the title. And every time you get a side different thing, so the first death is just randomly in the woods, and you can read it like just a pack chase down, but there's a little bit of something extra there, and then the next death they show more intelligence, so on and so forth. And by the time the main cast is confronted by this threat, you actually do genuinely fear for them, and then you see an escalation from there of the intelligence of these creatures as well, to the point where this feels almost hopeless for the surviving group. Really, really well done. It's a good way to keep the tension going as well, and I really appreciated the way that this ran through. So are we ending this month on a high? I'd say we are. I prefer Seed to this one. This is a much faster paced plot than that. It's a lot less mysterious as well. This is a lot more obvious and visceral in the horror that it's portraying, and it does a good job of that. The threat makes sense, is tangible, and is well built up, and you have natural progression throughout the story, and the plot does go along at a brisk pace as well. The ending wasn't for me personally, but again, that's a personal thing. Mileage will vary on that. It's not that it doesn't make sense, it just wasn't to my personal taste. But overall, this goes into a high B for me personally. If you like your survival in the woods against paranormal monsters horror, you will enjoy this one. Well, that's my thoughts on The Shuddering by Ania Ahlborn. Have you read this? What do you think of it? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you for joining me at the Festival Fair in October 2023. I'll catch you all